The Steamship Authority is a proud partner in many Falmouth community events, including town meeting coverage. And for good reason. Not only do we have a terminal and offices here, about 1/3 of our employees call Falmouth their home. We always work hard to serve our neighbors, friends, and the traveling public. We recently put 7 new electric buses into service at our Falmouth parking lots. Soon we'll be adding new vessels to our fleet, continuing work on our energy-efficient Woods Hole terminal buildings, and adding solar panels at our largest parking lot. At the Steamship Authority, we're serving the islands. And you.
Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Select Board meeting. It is Monday, February 26, 2024 at 6 o'clock. And I would entertain a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. I'll take a roll call vote, please.
Muscali, aye.
Brown eye.
Scott Price, aye.
Zelinski, aye.
Taylor, aye, and the board will return to public session at around 6:30. Good evening and welcome to the Monday evening meeting of the Falmouth Select Board. It is February 26th at 6:32, and the board just returned from an executive session where we came to an agreement on an MOA with collective bargaining for the Falmouth Library Association contract renewal. I would ask you to please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, I would ask, please, that everyone silence your cell phones, please, and notify me as the chair if you are making a video or audio recording of this open session meeting. The placement and operation of the recording equipment will not interfere with the conduct of this meeting. Is anyone recording this open meeting? Okay. Let's move into recognition. Any recognitions from the board? Yes.
I'd like to recognize the great work done by DPW during our last snowstorm, keeping the roads clear, keeping us safe.
You did a great job.
You did.
Thank you.
Good.
Anything else from the board? Okay, we'll move into announcements. Are there any announcements from the board? No announcements, okay. We will go right into public comment. Public comment may be made on routine matters not on the agenda this evening. Comments are limited to 2 minutes. Please introduce yourself. And since the matter has not been included on the agenda, the Select Board will not participate in any discussion or debate of your topic. Is anyone here for public comment? Mr. Doobie?
Richard Doobie, Blacksmith Shop Road. I missed the last board meeting, but I watched it on TV. It made me sad. It made me sad for a number of reasons. This town has an operating budget of approximately $150 million, and this meeting was a debate over $2,375.91. That's the difference between the $30,736 appropriated to cover the warrant article requested by the Falmouth Police Department and the $33,111.91 invoice for the shotgun procurement package. It made me sad the town council said it would be best for the citizens to create a 501c3 to cover this amount, create a corporation to cover $2,391.75 when there are already departmental donation funds. As a matter of fact, the Falmouth Police Department had over $12,000 in theirs at the end of November. That's sad. It made me sad that an overwhelming voice of the people that was expressed by the town meeting vote to destroy these weapons was not enough. It made me sad that the sides in this debate, as defined by a board member, were, quote, those who want things and those who have to pay for them. Through that statement, the board has divided the town into those who want things and those who have to pay for them. That's sad. It's sad that this board didn't raise an eyebrow when over $46,000 of an overage that the Falmouth Police Department article for its AR-15s created, funds that could not be used for any other purpose during the fiscal year. Where was your fiduciary responsibility then? $46,000 and not a word, $2,375.91, and you have a fiduciary responsibility. That's sad. To quote Mr. Sam Patterson, many people who get into town leadership are, quote, only interested in exercising their own egos and having power. That's sad. And I'd like to give you some charts so that you can reference what I just said. Thank you.
Is there anyone else here for public comment? Yes.
Hi, Tammy Gilbert, 26 Hawksway. Thank you for allowing me to speak this evening on behalf of myself and the 1,445 residents who have signed the petition to protect public access to Black Beach. 3 weeks ago, we received a response from the town manager. In his response, he said that confidentiality is required while the appeal process with our Concom and the Mass DEP takes place, but that, quote, the town's goal will always be to take any action possible to preserve the public's right of access to Black Beach, end quote. Wouldn't any action the town takes be independent from the Mass DEP and the Concom situation? Whether or not the gate gets approved with conditions or without conditions is secondary to whether or not it's even legal to put it up. Even in the unlikely event that the gate is rejected outright by conservation groups, the problem still has not been solved. I've poured through much history and detail of lawsuits from 20 years ago, when another gate was being proposed on the same right-of-way on the opposite side of the bike path. History appears to be repeating itself. The town at that time appears to have remained neutral. Therefore, residents were burdened with exorbitant costs and years of preparation and litigation. What resulted was a 30-year covenant where no barrier to access could be built in that spot. Here we are 20 years later, we're facing a very similar situation. The ultimate responsibility appears to lie with the town of Falmouth. A solution that will ensure that this conundrum does not ever reappear is for the town to formally establish the right-of-way or formally establish and own the prescriptive rights for the public to pass through, via foot or bicycle. We understand and respect all the work you're doing. We can appreciate that you guys have a lot on your plate with everything with housing and wastewater, pickleball. That being said, respectfully, we're wondering if you have a plan for protecting public access to Black Beach. When you have an opportunity, can you update us as to any steps you might be considering? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else here for public comment? Public comment? No. Okay. We will move into committee interviews, and we have one interview tonight for the Board of Health. Jed Goldstone.
Hi, my name is Jed Goldstone. I live on Grasmere Drive. I am seeking the open position. I was previously on the Board of Health. I spent 9 years on the Board of Health. I was chair for 3 years. I was vice chair for 2. I have a PhD in chemical oceanography, a bachelor's and a master's degree in chemistry, and I've been a toxicologist for now more than 20 years at Hui. I'm also a town meeting member from Precinct 2. So I know that there's an opening, and I do have the experience.
Any questions or comments from the board?
No questions. Obviously, Mr. Goldstone has done this job very well in the past, so I think he's well suited for it. I would move appointment,
Second.
and that is an appointment until only June of '24, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah, sure. It's just to fill in. I know that one of the members actually had moved out of town and is unable to, therefore, be on the board. If there are more candidates, there may even be another opening because I think somebody is interested in retiring. So,
I think you might be right.
Okay, so
so I do urge, speaking now to the public, to urge anybody, particularly in public health, who wishes to serve the town. It would be helpful to presumably helpful to the Board of Health, since I cannot speak for the Board of Health.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion amongst the board? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you for your willingness to come back. Okay, we are 5 minutes early for our public hearing, so I think I'm going to run through the consent agenda and take it out of order unless anyone objects. Okay, I'm going to go through the consent agenda. If you want to hold any of these items, please notify me. Licenses, application for special day, one-day wine and malt liquor license, Food Truck Festivals of America LLC, Cape Cod Food Truck and Craft Beer Festival, Cape Cod Fairgrounds, Saturday, 8/10/24. Administrative orders. Approve the petition of NSTAR Electric Company, DBA Eversource, and Verizon New England, Inc. for permission to install one JO pole to be labeled 69775, approximately 50 feet east of existing pole 6977 on Minot Road. The work is necessary for new Eversource equipment. Request for a variance to the sign code, 18432, off-premise signs, Rotary Club of Falmouth, day of play Saturday, 7/6/24.
I will abstain from any discussion of that as a member of the Rotary Club.
Okay, so we're going to hold that, Mr. Muscally, and when we vote, we can take your abstention. Request for sign, variance to the sign code, off-premise signs, Rotary Club of Falmouth Craft Day on Saturday, 8/31/24, Sunday, 9/1/24.
Same.
Thank you. Request for variance to the sign code, off-premise signs, Buzzards Bay Coalition, Buzzards Bay Watershed Ride on Sunday, 10/6/24. Request for variance to the sign code, placement of off-premise signs, Falmouth Commodores, flags on Main Street, light poles, and Gov Fuller Field light poles, June 7th through August 14th, 2024. Request for variance to the sign code, off-premise signs, Falmouth Commodores baseball clinics, late April through August 14th, 2024. Request for variance to the sign code, off-premise signs, Falmouth Commodores game day signs, mid-June to August 14th, 2023.
Typo.
I'm sorry?
Typo there.
Yes, I see that.
Yep.
And approve Freshwater Ponds Advisory Committee mission statement.
I do have I'm sorry, I missed it on E. I do have a question, so if we could just hold that for that question.
Okay, so I'm going to ask for a motion to move the consent agenda excluding administrative orders B, C, and E.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion amongst the board? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Okay, let's go back to administrative orders B. And we're going to vote these separately.
I move Administrative Order 2B.
Okay,
Second that.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion amongst the board? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain?
Okay, that's 4-1 with one abstention. C,
I move Administrative Order 2C.
thank you.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to move administrative order C, 2C. Any further discussion amongst the board? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain?
Okay, we have 4 to approve and 1 to abstain. And E, request for a variance to the sign code, placement off-premise signs, Falmouth Commodores flags on Main Street light poles and Gov Fuller Field light poles, June 7th through August 14th. Mr. Muscally?
Just a question. It says through August 14th, 2024, but I think the event that's going to be on the polls is that All-Star game that they're doing on July 27th. So I was just wondering if that was...
Yes, Madam Chair and Select Board Member Muscally, when I typed that up, I went basically from the application submitted by the Commodore's rep, and it did list August 24th. I think you're probably correct. I just used the dates that were listed
point,
there.
I mean, so I would assume that they'll be taken down after the event on July 27th, that's all. But, because the All-Star game is July 27th, those flags are for that All-Star game.
Oh, so you're saying they don't need to be up after?
After
They don't
the
need to be up
27th.
after that's my only point.
And we'll make contact with the Commodores and make sure that we get those done.
Yeah, I approve it, sure.
Okay, so can we move that and give the town manager the ability to amend it as necessary?
Second?
Okay, so do I have a motion?
I'll move it.
Okay, I have a
Second.
motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. And I'm going to take one more thing out of order. We're going to take a look at the minutes. Review and vote to approve the minutes of the public session, February 12th, 2024. Did everyone have an opportunity to review them?
Yes, and I had, it might be correct, but on the end of page 7, where it has us voting, we voted and then there's more discussion after that. And I'm not sure if that, maybe it did happen that way, but I thought we had the last bit of discussion before we voted. So it's the very end of page 7 and the first sentence of page 8. So I would, I guess I could move approval with just double checking that.
I'm slowly trying to scroll to the minutes.
It's on page
Can't even get this
122.
thing to move along.
I think we might want to send them back.
Hold the table.
So we voted here, but then there's, I asked about.
Yeah, I remember that discussion, and I do think it may have actually popped in after we
Oh, it-
actually
okay.
took the vote, I think.
Okay, I think what I'd like to do is hold them and have them reviewed again and brought back to us next time, if that's okay, just to make sure we can clear that up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's move into our public hearings. Our first hearing updates to Chapter 275 Shellfish and Herring Regulations. Mr. Zelinski,
Thank
for
you,
the
Madam Chair.
notice.
The Falmouth Select Board will hold a public hearing under MGL 130, 52, and 97 and pursuant to Falmouth Charter C37H on the request to modify Select Board's regulations, Chapter 275, Shellfish and Herring. This public hearing request was received on January 22nd, 2024, in the office of the Select Board. Said hearing will be held on February 26, 2024, at 6:45 p.m. in the Town's Select Board's meeting room, Town Hall, located at 59 Town Hall Square, Falmouth, Mass. Interested parties may review the draft regulations at the Harbor Master's office or online at www.falmouthma.gov/233/Harbor per order of the Falmouth Select Board.
Thank you, Mr. Zelinski. Any comment, Mr. Renshaw? Can we pass it over?
Real briefly, I know Chuck has a presentation and here to answer any questions. As you all know, you have a copy of the red line and the final draft of the proposed revisions to Chapter 275. Upon review, we found some of the regulations found in Chapter 275, shellfish and herring, are obsolete and quite honestly contradictory to state law. So part of this exercise is cleaning that language up, and I'll turn it over to Chuck.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time. Chuck Martinson, Shellfish Constable and Deputy Director of Marine and Environment. I'm joined this evening also by members of the Shellfish Advisory Committee, which is appointed by the board. Advisory Committee's been in play now for about 6 years. This is part of what the Advisory Committee has been working on as well with our department and the public. Also joined by a handful of other commercial fishermen as well. In addition, I'd like to first also thank Attorney Maura O'Keefe for all of her help with this project. This was voluminous for us, and we would not be where we are today without the strong support that Maura has provided us. As Mr. Renshaw had pointed out, many of the regulations were obsolete. As an example, there was some language in there about the taking of herring. There are superseding regulations about herring harvest. You cannot harvest herring in the Commonwealth whatsoever. There's other regulations in there about sizes of animals. And I think the take home here is that particularly we've really moved into a time environmentally where we have a lot of shift in our regulations at the state level, and our regulations need to be as restrictive as they are. And in some cases, for instance, with things like Vibrio and a few other things, that would mean that I would have to be in front of the board all the time, constantly. changing those up to match the state regulations. The Shellfish Advisory Board had recommended the possibility of trying to work with our department to make that easier, that process easier and more responsive to changes as they come up, whether they're, we have an event where we have a cold snap and we have fish that die and we have to close an area down, or we have to, I could go on and on about all the differences all the possibilities that this could come into play. So I just wanted to basically point out to the board why we moved forward with that. There have been a number of public hearings, or not hearings, but a number of dialogue in front of the Shellfish Advisory Committee before we got to this point as well. It has been, vetted very heavily on that end, and we have not really heard much negative from the community on it. Instead of going through each, I'd be happy to go through each and every line here, but I think in the interest of time, the board would probably want me to avoid that. I don't know if there are any questions that you'd like me to answer specific to certain sections or kind of why we got to where we were at.
Questions from the board?
My questions have already been answered. There's been ample outreach, and the committee worked on this with Chuck, so I don't think I have any questions.
No, I don't either.
The regulations provide for regulations to be adopted by the constable.
Correct.
What would be that process about public notice of those regulations? How would that actually be implemented if the constable's adopting these regulations?
So there's two different things. There are these regulations here
Right.
that are adopted by the select board.
Right.
And then what the amendments contemplate is that the shellfish constable will be able to establish rules, not regulations. And it is a technicality, but rules are a lot more, they're meant to be less formal, more in the moment, so that so that the shellfish constable will be able to react to these pronouncements at the state level, either in real time or in short order. It just allows for the people who are working with boots on the ground to be able to comply on the state level without having to come back here and go through this whole process for the regulations. Now, the rules have to fit within the regulations. There isn't a public notice requirement because they're not formal like that. They're really just a way for Mr. Martinson to be able to react to what the state is regulating on a daily basis.
I certainly wouldn't want him to have to come here that often.
That's part of it, but just to be clear, he can never exceed his authority that's contained within these regulations. That's a boundary, it's a ceiling, and whatever rules he implements have to fit underneath it and within these regulations.
Mr. Brown?
How would the local fishermen know what the rules are currently?
Sure. How would they know currently or
Well,
proposals?
when the rules change,
Sure.
not the regulations, but
right.
just a rule change.
Right. So, although Shellfish Advisory is just advisory, we try to do a very good job of publicizing what we're doing at that level and having discussions there. That would be the primary way. Also, it would go out on our website. There's a number of different ways that we would get that out. And if that's even of more importance to the board, we could step that up even and, do advertisements in the paper if the board would like. However, we could.
As long as it's in a regular
Sure.
posted place that the fishermen can find it before they go out.
We're actually required by the state to post it at a number of different locations, at Town Hall, at the boat ramps, at the public libraries. So we regularly, every time we go through a season change, we post those places anyways as well. So they're used to seeing that there if they're not on the internet.
Okay, thank you.
And then one more question on commercial reporting. All commercial permit holders shall provide a report, 275-16.
Okay.
Is that when 25-foot proximity to docks?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, what's the time frame that report has to be submitted? That was one of the questions I had.
2516, just give me one. That was the directed digging, or is it?
Commercial reporting, all
I think
commercial.
it's for when they're digging next to a dock, 25
Yep.
feet from a dock.
Yeah, the
Well, through a
notification.
report, but it doesn't say, you
Yeah.
know, the time frame. That's all.
We would need to be notified before it happened, whether it's, you know, the day of, or we're trying to address there is, to be quite honest, is people going in and digging out shellfish in an area where a dock would be going in, so thereby not triggering the shellfish regulations under conservation. And that's actually been an issue, so that's what we're trying to avoid by that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Sure, little background.
But then they're not going to know that there might be a dock going there. That's the tricky part, right?
Perhaps.
I guess unless they're the homeowner, then they'll know.
It's with knowledge, you know, it's, yeah.
I guess so. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Are you looking for us to vote these updates, or?
Yes, following any public comment in the closing of the hearing, I would ask that the select board vote to adopt.
Okay.
Madam
Thank
Chair,
you.
I have one
Yes.
other addition.
Please.
Under state statute, the regulations are supposed to say exactly when the effective date is. We've left that blank pending discussion, but I propose that the effective date, and this is in section 275-26, adoption and effective date. I propose that the effective date be March 15th of 2024. So those would just be added in per your vote.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions or comments from the public on this hearing? Okay, I will entertain a motion to close the hearing.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion amongst the board? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Any further discussion amongst the board on
No,
the draft?
These are well done.
thanks for updating us.
Madam Chair, if I may, motion to approve updating Chapter 275 Shellfish and Herring Regulations as proposed by MES, the Shellfish Advisory Committee, and reviewed by Town Attorney, effective March 15th, 2024.
Second?
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion amongst the board? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to our second public hearing. Application by MZ Enterprises, Inc., doing business as Food Mart and Liquor for Change of Officers, Directors, LLC, and change of stock interest of its all-alcoholic beverage package store license located on 424 East Falmouth Highway, Unit 6A in East Falmouth.
Good evening. My name is Jeff Nickerson. I'm an attorney here in town.
Oh, hang on one
Read that
second.
in.
Can I do the notice first? Yes, please.
Thank you, Madam
Please
Chair.
read the notice.
Notice is hereby given under Chapter 138 of the General Laws as amended that MZ Enterprises, Inc., doing business as Falmouth Food Mart and Liquor, has applied for a change of officers, directors, LLC managers, and the change of stock, new stockholder transfer, and issuance of stock of its all-alcohol beverage package store license located at 424 East Falmouth Highway, Unit A6, East Falmouth. Hearing on the above application will be held in the Select Board Meeting Room, Falmouth Town Hall, on Monday, February 26, 2024, at 6:45 PM. Comments may be sent to selectboard@falmouthma.gov per order of the Select Board. Nancy Taylor, Edwin Zelinski, Douglas C. Brown, Anjali Scott Price, Robert P. Muscally.
Thank you, Mr. Zelinski. Go ahead, Attorney Nickerson.
Good evening. So Jeff Nickerson, I'm here on behalf of the applicant, Mingma Sherpa. Mr. Sherpa and his business partner, Zahid Rashid, are the two shareholders of this corporation. Mr. Sherpa is buying Mr. Rashid's shares in the corporation, so Mr. Sherpa, after this transaction, will be the sole shareholder in the corporation, and he will also change the officers so that he is the sole officer in the corporation and sole director in the corporation. That's effectively the request. So we would ask that you approve it so that this can go to the ABCC for their approval subsequently.
Questions from the board?
No, well, I guess one, does this require a tip certification, like with restaurants, that you, when you're selling liquor, do you have to have that also?
I'm not certain. So Mr. Sherpa is currently the manager, and he will remain the manager. There's no outward change, no change in
Okay,
any of those roles.
thank you.
Any questions or comments from the public about this application? Okay, seeing none, I would entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to close the hearing. Any further discussion amongst the board? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Discussion amongst the board.
seems like a minimal change. I would move approval.
Second Mr. Brown's motion.
Do you want to read the,
I make a motion to approve the application by MZ Enterprises Incorporated, doing business as Falmouth Food Mart and Liquor, for a change of officers, directors, LLC managers, and a change of stock interest of its all alcoholic beverages package store license located at 424 East Falmouth Highway, Unit A6, East Falmouth, as presented.
Second.
okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion amongst the board? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Where'd he go? Oh, unanimous, thank you. Okay, we'll move into business. Mr. Renshaw, Business One, authorizing borrowing for wastewater plant upgrades.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to allow or ask our outstanding Finance Director, Mr. Ed Centeo, to lead the presentation and hopefully answer any questions you may have. First off, though, before Ed starts to talk, I just want to thank Ed, his staff. You're about to hear the town's about to save a very significant amount of money with this item. I think it was at Ed's direction. I mean, there was a letter we received just a couple of weeks ago revealing the fact that we were approved for the loan forgiveness. Something was the catalyst for that letter, and I think that someone was Ed and his staff that are responsible for getting the wheels of this process moving. So I want to thank Ed and his team for that.
Actually, I want to thank Amy Lowell for all the work she's done for years, trying to get prepared to get the loan forgiveness and hopefully the 0% interest rate that I'm anticipating, Ed Centio, Finance Director, but anticipating will be approved in a couple of weeks by the Clean Water Trust. So Amy has done a great amount of work, and so is Patty O'Connell. I'm a bystander.
If Amy were here, she would be thanking Ed. So it's really difficult to pin praise on people here.
But thank you, Mike. I appreciate it. So we're here before you to have you approve, if you so choose, to authorize us to do a loan that actually has $10 million, over $10 million in loan forgiveness on an overall project of $33,500,000. In addition, we utilized bond proceeds from several decades of unused bond proceeds to actually reduce the borrowing even further. So on a $33,500,000 project, we're being requested to pay back $22,230,422, which is quite a reduction in cost to the town. And if you so choose, there's a motion in the document that would have you authorize the signing of the documents, and then hopefully either now or later today you can sign and execute the documents that have been provided in your packet.
This is awesome.
Yeah.
It is awesome. It's good news.
Well, if I may,
I was going to say, somebody move it fast.
a motion to vote to sign off on the interim loan notes for the upgrades of the Blacksmith Shop Road wastewater treatment facility based on the language indicated in the quote vote of the select board documents.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion amongst the board? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Thank you very much.
Awesome.
Thank you. You won't have as much writer's cramp as
It's good.
the last borrow.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to present draft housing production plan. And this is with our housing coordinator and our planning coordinator, Kim Fish and Jed Cornock.
Hi. For the record, thank you. For the record, I'm Kim Fish, the housing coordinator, and with me tonight is Jed Cornock, the town planner, Alexis Lanzalata, Barrett Planning Group, and Jeff Davis with Horsley Witten Group. They're here to give a presentation on the draft goals and strategies and take questions and comments on them or the draft housing production plan. But before I ask them to come up, I just want to mention a couple of things. For the public here and anyone watching, we've posted the draft housing production plan on the housing page, and we're asking for public comment to be sent to housing@falmouthma.gov until March 1st. And I just wanted to fill you in on what's next. The planning board meeting on March 12th, we're going to be hopefully presenting the planning board with a final draft for them to vote approval on. And then we'll bring that, hopefully a final draft back to you on March 25th to get your approval on, and then it will go to the state for their certification. And I just wanted to take just a quick moment to thank Alexis and Jeff. They have been instrumental in drafting this new housing production plan, and they've been amazing to work with. I've learned a lot, that's for sure. And they've also been fun, which is just wonderful, because this is a tedious process, and they've made it a lot less painful for us. So with that, thank you, and come on up. Thank you. Oh. Here, can you do that? It'll probably be quicker if you do it.
Okay. So good evening, everyone. Again, my name is Jeff Davis, and thank you for your time this evening. We have just a very brief presentation. I believe you all received in your packets a longer presentation that was presented to the planning board last week that goes into greater detail, but we wanted to give you high-level summary of where we are. We've already gone through introductions, so I'll skip that. I wanted to start by just reiterating that we did not come up with the draft strategies out of a hat. This all came from public engagement as well as our own research and analysis. There have been 2 public meetings, the first held on November 8th of this past year. And at that meeting, we gave a presentation describing what the housing production plan is and why it's important for the community. We presented information on community demographics, housing statistics, and housing market trends so that these decisions can be based on facts and data. And then also had a series of small group discussions to identify the community's housing needs and preferences. And based on all the information that we collected that evening, again, as well as our own research, we held a second meeting on January 10th, 2024, where we asked people to gauge some specific strategies that were developed in response to the feedback in November. So folks were asked whether they agreed, disagreed, or needed more information in order to decide on various strategies. And then past that, what strategies should be a high priority if they were priorities, or if they thought that the strategy was something that the town should pursue, and also if they had any further comments. So feedback from both those meetings is what has shaped the goals and strategies in the draft housing production plan that is before you. And I'm going to tag team with my colleague Alexis, who's going to briefly go over the goals, the draft goals in the plan.
Thank you, Jeff, and thank you again. My name's Alexis Lanzalata, and I'm with Barrett Planning Group. I'm going to just set my phone up here because it looks like that clock is kind of going back and forth between working and not, and I want to be respectful of your time.
Could you just pull the mic down closer to you
sure.
so people at home can hear you? Thank you.
No problem. So for communities that choose to do a housing production plan, there are certain requirements that the state outlines for what the goals of the plan must address. And the first kind of major criteria is that it includes a numerical target for an annual production goal of affordable housing units. And it's very formulaic what that's based on. It's simply based on 0.5% of your year-round housing count. So for Falmouth, that yields a numerical goal of 80 units of affordable housing annually, and remain committed to producing affordable units beyond the 10% statutory minimum under Chapter 40B. So if this housing production plan gets approved at the state level, and in any given year where the community meets that target, you can request certification from the state. And if you have a certified housing production plan, you have kind of a one-year reprieve where the Zoning Board of Appeals has more discretion with reviewing comprehensive permits. So that's kind of the advantage to meeting that annual target in any given year, in addition to, of course, the important goal and objective of producing more affordable units. Goal number 2. So after that numerical goal, the state regs kind of guiding the housing production plan process talk about the necessity to include more qualitative goals addressing the strategies for meeting a variety of housing types based on both what the needs are identified in the needs assessment, but also based on kind of community priorities, provided that those housing types are feasible within the market and meet the needs identified in the plan. So with that in mind, we have goals 2 through 7 to promote a diversity of housing types targeting different household needs. And we'll talk more in the strategies about how to accomplish that in appropriate areas. Goal number 3, to maximize the number of affordable units included in development on town-owned land. Goal number 4, to prioritize the creation of affordable rental units in contrast to ownership. The plan does advocate for the creation of ownership units as well, but in terms of where the greatest gaps are, it is for renter households. And that's also something we heard from the community as well. While there is a strong need for ownership, kind of an acknowledgement that really the rental affordable units are a great need. Goal number 5, work with private developers to ensure community needs for affordable housing are met. So that's really just encouraging that public-private collaboration to meet the goals and strategies of the plan. Goal number 6, to minimize greenfield development by targeting residential development and redevelopment where it already exists. So that's preserving existing open space. Goal number 7, consider and apply the findings of other planning processes, including the town's local comprehensive plan and the Cape Cod Commission's regional housing strategy. So those are the very broad goals. We have a number, I believe 22 strategies to support these goals. And my colleague Jeff is going to start us off with the regulatory strategies.
Thank you, Alexis. So yes, we have 22 strategies in 4 different buckets. So regulatory strategies, strategies for capacity building, affordable housing strategies, and strategies around financing and funding. So regulatory strategies, and I probably will spend a little bit more time on these as they are a little more complex and also perhaps a bit more controversial than some of the others. First, establish mechanisms to monitor or regulate short-term rentals. Right now, you don't have a mechanism for tracking or registering short-term rentals. We really recommend that you do that at a minimum so that you can start tracking data to see where short-term rentals may be a problem. It could be in certain neighborhoods. And then based on that data, consider whether you need to regulate or prohibit short-term rentals in certain areas in order to protect those long-term year-round rental housing. 2, allow more diverse housing types in more areas. As you can imagine, there's a lot more text that goes along with this strategy. We're not holding the town to action, but holding the town to at least study opportunities for more diversity of housing in other areas of town. For example, there are a few areas, a few zoning districts where you currently allow 2-family development. We encourage you to see if 3 or 4 family units might be appropriate in those same areas. We also know that walkability is important for housing diversity. So taking a look at downtown, the current mixed residential commercial overlay district, other areas of mixed use or commercial use, look at a half-mile radius walking distance around those areas and see if you would be comfortable allowing 2-family by right within that walking distance. So just some specific ideas for the town to explore there. 3, explore regulatory options to encourage the development of smaller starter homes. There's an issue not only of teardowns to build larger homes or putting very large additions on existing homes, but also there isn't much incentive for developers to build smaller footprint homes that might be more naturally affordable. So there are a number of state-level programs or local initiatives the town could consider to encourage smaller starter homes, and tying that to your inclusionary zoning, or in other words, requiring that a certain percentage of those homes be affordable. 4, consider adopting pre-reviewed detached accessory dwelling unit plans. So in other words, you could have a series of accessory dwelling unit plans that applicants could purchase in advance. They've already been reviewed by your staff, and just would have to make sure that they work well on the site on which they're proposed, but it saves everyone time, it saves everyone money, and makes that process of building accessory dwelling units easier and more affordable. 5th, explore joint initiatives to support the town's seasonal workforce while respecting the need for year-round rental housing. So we know that you have a fluctuating seasonal workforce, and we don't want the housing needs of that population to be taking away from the needs for year-round rental housing. So looking at ideas like cooperating with different employers or other private entities to build dormitory housing, or looking at buildings that are used for warming shelters in the winter and making those into seasonal housing. So taking spaces that are used for other uses throughout the year and turning them to seasonal workforce housing. 6, expand inclusionary zoning provisions. So right now, most notably, you use inclusionary zoning in the mixed residential and commercial overlay district, or the Mr. COD, as I like to say. So you certainly have an opportunity as a town to explore expanding where inclusionary zoning applies. 7, modify the transfer of development rights bylaw, or TDR, by adding additional density bonuses for affordable dwellings. So this is something you've had on the books for decades. It is rarely used. We make some recommendations for modifications that hopefully will make it more attractive for people to use, while also garnering the town potentially some more affordable units. And then for capacity building strategies, I'll go much faster through these. Conduct ongoing community outreach and education regarding affordable housing needs locally and regionally. 9, formalize a program to monitor existing deed-restricted housing units. This is very important. There are regional efforts to make this more efficient and effective, and it's particularly important in maintaining de-restricted affordable homes. If you're monitoring them, you know when that de-restriction is going to expire. You can give yourself plenty of time to find alternatives to extend those de-restrictions. 10, market the accomplishments of the Falmouth Affordable Housing Fund. You've been doing great work, certainly compared to your neighbors in the Cape and across the Commonwealth. You've been doing some excellent work in affordable housing, and it's important to celebrate that. Pardon me. And so that everyone in the community knows what your investments are accomplishing. And 11, strengthen local and regional partnerships to share ideas and resources, learn from others, and explore new ways of creating affordable housing. You're not doing this alone, and communities around the region are all dealing with the same issues, and it's good to share ideas.
Thank you. I'm going to walk you through the final 2 buckets of strategies. The first one, which is affordable housing strategies. Number 12 is to develop criteria with other departments for assessing the best use of current and future town-owned properties. So right now, the planning department has internally been doing some work in that regard, and then the hope is to then take input from other departments and just kind of come up with some guidance for when the departments are reviewing land that is owned by the town or potentially that could become owned by the town for how it could best be utilized, or if it could be used for a combination of activities. Number 13, encourage development that includes a number of units for special needs populations, such as formerly homeless households or persons with disabilities. There's multiple ways you can do this, one of which I'll be talking about more in the next bucket, which relates to financing, because there are certain financing programs from the state where basically if there's a certain number of set-aside units in a project, you can receive support, financial support for the project. Set-aside units for clients, for example, of the Department of Mental Health or for formerly homeless households. 14, Develop informational materials for developers and property owners on a series of topics with an emphasis on local comprehensive permits. So those kind of friendly 40Bs, this is something that, a very experienced developer is going to know a lot about, but there might be smaller developers or even a homeowner who's interested in potentially, either through cooperation with a nonprofit such as Habitat for Humanity, developing on a non-conforming lot to create an affordable unit, which could be done via a local comprehensive permit process. 15, make suitable public property available for affordable housing. So I had mentioned that a housing production plan there are certain requirements from the state as to what it must include, and one of the things is it must include the identification of town-owned properties for which the town will consider encouraging the development of comprehensive permits or 40Bs. So that is a requirement of the plan. So the plan does include a map of some town-owned properties in addition to other areas that where as my colleague Jeff mentioned, where it makes sense to encourage potential zoning changes. Number 16, consider allocating a percentage of sewer capacity for affordable or community housing projects. So my understanding is the select board, you kind of have some priorities for considering when granting variances with regard for sewer capacity. And so you could take a further stance and actually specify, clear prioritization and a percentage of that sewer capacity, which the town of Provincetown has done. Number 17, issue a standing request for proposals, or an RFP, to acquire property for the development of affordable housing. There are a number of towns who have used this to help with the procurement process, where if a great opportunity comes up, the Affordable Housing Trust does not have to rush to issue an RFP to be able to act on that. If there's a standing RFP that gets reissued at certain intervals for property acquisition, it's a great way to handle that. And you can use the criteria referenced in Strategy 12 to include in that RFP, or to help formulate that RFP. This is the last bucket here, and it is finance and subsidy strategies. So, of course, you need money to create housing. So there are a lot of really kind of strict requirements that come with a lot of subsidy sources. So number 18, encourage unique development approaches that utilize the Falmouth Affordable Housing Fund. So the plan does talk in a little more detail about some examples that the Falmouth Affordable Housing Fund has already been used for, and just kind of really encouraging further exploration of those. Number 19, provide support for the Falmouth Affordable Housing Fund by exploring additional resources and strategies to capitalize the fund. As an example, I understand you've been discussing real estate transfer tax, and that's just one example of something that the town could look at to prioritize capitalizing the fund. 20, explore tax relief for property owners who offer year-round affordable rentals. So these would not be eligible for inclusion on the SHI, most likely, because this is really just kind of a local tax incentive. Provincetown does this, where annually you can submit a request for tax abatement on the portion of your property that's used for a verifiable, affordable rental. You have to produce your lease showing what the price points are, and it gives the property owner relief on the portion of the property used for that unit. Number 21, consider utilizing the state's tax increment financing program as an opportunity to encourage affordable housing development in designated commercial areas. So there's a TIF program at the state level that basically you have to identify a specific area. There has to be commercial activity in it, and there's stipulations with it where if there's a development project there that includes a certain number of affordable units, essentially the taxes are kind of frozen for a number of years to incentivize that development. And then the last one, to explore the applicability of federal, state, and regional programs to finance affordable or mixed-income housing projects. You may be familiar with Governor Healy's Affordable Homes Act, or Housing Bond bill, which is outlining, a lot of potential funds for existing programs, but also establishing new housing-related programs. So this is really just encouraging that the town, continue to, make sure you're really on top of that, because the opportunities that will bring could be really, really helpful in meeting these strategies. So those are all of the strategies. In terms of next steps, just a reminder, as Kim mentioned, the draft is posted on the town's website, and it's been up for since I think mid-February, and the town is accepting public comment through March 1st, and that is the email that you can send them to. So that's it. I mean, you have the draft document, so if you have any questions in the document or on these goals and strategies, Jeff and I would be happy to take them.
Thank you. Questions or comments from the board?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Mr. Brown?
I have a question about the ability of the town to partner with a developer. Say we have identified a parcel that's near Main Street, but not included in the sewer district. If the town was to say that housing is such a priority, and there's a parcel that was brought forth by a developer where they had the ability to make greater density if they could obtain permission to get a sewer connection, does the town have any latitude to be able to decide to maybe reach out a little further from Main Street? Maybe we'd include a certain setback from a certain distance from Main Street or something like that? Is there any possibility that we could do something like that?
So, yes, the answer to your question is yes, but not easily. And what I mean by that is the sewer districts are regulated by the DEP. So if the town whenever the town expands sewer districts, as we are doing as we roll out the build-out, as you know, that's a whole planning process that has to go through a DEP review to see that we have the treatment and the discharge capacity to take that on. So, yes, could we develop a plan that is submitted to the DEP that says, you know, here's how we are going to provide the capacity to sewer these additional areas? That is something that can be done. I guess you're hearing the hesitation in my voice in that we have, as you well know, Mr. Brown, we have discharge limitations, which is even more onerous, more difficult at this point than our treatment plant. Mm-hmm. So if today we said, we want to expand the Main Street sewer system, after a multi-year process in which we determine where we're going to discharge that, we could potentially do that.
Right.
But it's a long road, and it just adds to that burden that we're already challenged with in terms of finding discharge sites for the build-out of the system.
But eventually we're going to figure it out.
Yeah, and if the outfall is approved, that becomes a much easier process.
Right. Thank you.
Mr. Muscali?
Yeah, just a couple of questions. Question number one is the March 1st date. Is that a absolute date that we need in order to be able to file the production plan? Because very comprehensive plan, very detailed. I skimmed it. I didn't read it that closely, but can that period be extended without too much difficulty to give the public more opportunity to?
It's up to staff. There's no statutory reason to end it on March 1st, other than the town's current HPP has officially expired. So town staff has been their priority to, and I think by the direction of this body, to expedite the adoption of the new plan so that you're back in compliance. But there's nothing to say that you couldn't extend that.
A question. The project description says, although the primary focus of the HPP is to move a community towards its 10% statutory minimum, it also addresses the creation of attainable housing for the community. I didn't see really much in your presentation about what the missing middle, if you will, or what we're referring to as for attainable housing.
You start.
Okay. Well, so there are some funding sources in the Affordable Homes Act that can go higher than what's allowed for the Affordable Housing Trusts and for the Community Preservation Act. So that is one thing. I believe I believe Mass Housing has their a program, their workforce housing program, which goes up to 120%. So as part of that Affordable Homes Act, it's suggesting a significant recapitalization of that program. So that particular strategy each strategy has a lot more kind of nuanced detail to it in the plan. And so that is something we can look at to make sure that is, clearly addressed. And then, of course, also the seasonal communities designation, that potential, could that potentially allow, you to create different parameters for what the trust or your community preservation committee can fund? It all is tied to funding sources, and unfortunately, there aren't really funding sources with, right. So.
Notice that there are a number of strategies that, in fact, won't get you additional units on the SHI, but which would probably be beneficial for your housing
Still
needs.
a need for it here.
Right. So, for example, the starter home conversation, a lot of that would not be on the SHI, but it'd be producing a housing type that's needed. And certainly the accessory dwelling unit reform, it's extraordinarily difficult to get people to put a deed restriction on an accessory dwelling unit in their backyard. It's not a great deed-restricted affordable housing strategy, but again, it's providing that more attainable housing, even if it's not part of the SHI. So actually, if you go back and look, there are a number of strategies that won't necessarily get you towards the 10%, but will add to your housing diversity.
But I think the issue, the problem is that it doesn't hit you as being, looking at that need. It's, when someone's reading it, if you look behind it and the nuances, I understand that you're meeting that need for attainable housing, but it's just not that, it's not that apparent when you're just looking at the document itself. So maybe tie that in a little bit. And then the only other thing is on your strategy for the special needs populations. I mean, special needs has a particular connotation with respect to people with disabilities. I think lumping that population with people who are homeless may not be the best way to address that term special needs population, because someone who's homeless is not a special need person. A special needs has a connotation of persons with a disability, so maybe a little bit of a difference in phrasing for that particular group that you're covering.
I had the same question, but I wasn't sure how they define special needs. Homelessness is certainly a special need. But special needs for...
It certainly has a meaning to the developmentally disabled population.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think we need to just...
To separate it up.
Separate
Or
that.
define it.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else from the board?
I have one more unless
Brown?
anybody else wants to go first.
Go ahead.
I wonder how we're going to deal with the fact that the target keeps moving. When we talk about the average median income being $125,000 now, and you're going to help people that are making 80% of that, that's not really low income. And now the target keeps moving because more and more wealthy people keep coming here and impacting our average median income. Whereas the people that are working at the stores and the gas stations and construction workers, their income isn't changing that fast as to what our AMI is. So I think we need a new way of figuring it out. I don't think this affordable structure really is working, especially for us.
What would you propose, Tom?
I don't know. I think there just needs to be a new system of making these things affordable. Maybe it's only, maybe 40 or 60% maybe would be the target for Falmouth, because we're not really helping the people that really need the help. And then the ones that are just above it are out of luck too. So there's a huge range of really lower income people that are not being helped, and then the middle that's not being helped at all, where it's helping the ones that are just on the fringe.
Sure, and that's one, I think, goes back to the funding and financing issue. What funding and financing sources allow you to de-restrict to that deeper subsidy? And then, I had another point, and of course it just flew out of my head. And you can also use your affordable housing trust fund for that purpose. Like right now, you've been very successful in using those funds to buy additional affordability, de-restrictions, and you can also use it to say, all right, if you're required to be at 80% of the AMI, we're going to use part of our affordable housing trust fund to buy you down to 60%, so that we can deepen that affordability.
Right, thank you. That's all I have.
Anything else from the board? And this will come back to us to vote to approve the final plan on March 25th. Okay. Anything else?
Just consider moving that March 1 date, I don't know, it's whatever you think.
So I understand the intent and the direction. It'd be my recommendation, for some of the reasons that have already been stated, that we get this completed and sent to the state for certification, I think that's the term, as quickly as we can. It has been posted on the website for a couple of weeks. Unfortunately, this Friday is March 1st, the deadline, so just encouraging people that are home watching. We'll run some public announcements to remind people to go to the website, make comments via housing@falmouthma.gov. But it'd be my recommendation we stick to that March 1st deadline.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And thank you for your comments. Those are helpful.
Very good job with the plan.
And the written comments that the board receives will be transferred to you, I suppose, right? Because we did get some comments from Attorney Moynihan today about some of the categorizing of the units and so forth. So.
Yeah, that's all coming.
Yeah.
Okay,
Good, because we do have it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, we will move on. Mr. Renshaw, we'll go to you to vote to endorse 17 Walker Street Local Initiative Program LIP application.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just real quickly, I want to give kind of an outline background. Select Board is being asked tonight to vote to endorse the Local Initiative Program, application by sending a letter outlining the board's approval and directing me as the town manager to sign the LIP application on behalf of the board. As a bit of background information, the project just up the street at Walker and Main is a redevelopment of an existing commercial property that currently contains office and retail use, and historically was used for many years as a taxi transportation center, which I did not know. Development team will remove the existing degraded commercial structure and build a new 3-story apartment building with street-level garage parking for all the proposed units. Madam Chair and Select Board, I had an opportunity twice now to sit in on presentations by the development team and Miss Laura Moynihan, who's here tonight to give a presentation. I think she has a brief PowerPoint presentation to show some illustrations. Excited about the project, and I'll turn it over to Laura. Ms. Moynihan.
Good evening. For the record, I am Laura Moynihan, Falmouth attorney, and I am representing the developer on this project. The principal of the developer is Mr. Stuart Rothman, who's here tonight in the audience, as well as Evan Stellman, who is from Castle Architects in Somerville. Mike Rosselli is the project engineer. He was not able to be here tonight. Mr. Rothman is local to the extent that he does own other commercial properties on Main Street, 189, 193, 291 Main Street. He owns some apartments on 8 Chancery Lane, and he has a home here in Falmouth as well. And he has extensive experience in housing development, particularly in the Cambridge area. So we are asking you tonight for your endorsement of this local initiative program application. By endorsing the application, we are essentially asking Housing and Livable Communities to review and approve the site for a project eligibility letter. So it's not a permit application. You're not a permit granting authority. You're not approving the permits. That would be for the zoning board to do. And it's not a funding application. It's simply an application to the state for project eligibility, basically, asking HLC to look at it to determine that the site's suitable for the housing that's proposed based on the content of the application. So, this is not working. Pardon? Oh, got to do it the manual way? Okay. So this is an 11-unit apartment building, 5 one-bedroom units, 4 two-bedrooms, 2 studios. There would be no age restrictions on it. It's intended to be workforce housing. Mr. Rothman, as a local businessman, understands the need for housing the workforce, particularly downtown. 4 units would be restricted, 3 up to 80% AMI, and 1 at 100%, which would be a studio unit. It's a downtown location. It is, as Mr. Renshaw said, an existing commercial property that is in need of redevelopment. The existing site coverage is 100%. It's completely paved, covered with building. There is sewer service to the site. We have reviewed the sewer connection with Amy Lowell, and she's confirmed that the site is suitable for sewer connection. It is zone business 1. There are other water and utilities available in the streets. And as you know, it is pedestrian friendly and there's public transportation available. So the project would demolish the existing building, construct a new 3-story building. The footprint is about 4,500 square feet. So you'll see pictures of the building, but keep that in mind. We're really talking about the size of a very large home at 4,500 square foot footprint. The development cost would be about $6 million. The unique part of this project is that parking is proposed on the lower level under the building. So the first floor would be the parking garage, similar to what you might see in an more urban setting. 1 space per unit, apartments on the 2nd and 3rd floor, sewer connection, elevators would be provided, and washer and dryer within the units. So this is the GIS map. You can see, I can't use the pointer, but you can, oh, it does work. Here's the site right here, 17 Chancery Lane. And this is a picture of the existing property. On the corner, there's access off of Walker Street and Chancery Lane. And this is the existing conditions plan, so you can see the building and the existing paved area. And these are the renderings for the proposed project and the floor plans, all of which are in the application. So this is showing the proposed lower floor and how the parking fits on that lower floor. So 11 spaces, again, 1 per unit, with an entry off of Chancery Lane and another entry off of Glenwood Avenue. And this is a rendering showing that floor as well. I'll just point out the entrances to the building here and off of Walker Street in that location. Another showing the parking garage lower level and 1 of the units, which is a 1-bedroom unit. And this is the 2nd floor plan showing the 2-bedroom units in red or pink, the 1-bedrooms in brown or tan, and the studio unit in the middle. You see the common areas here with the stairwells coming in, and again, the elevator. And then the 3rd floor is the same as the 2nd floor, so same layout, same number of units. And these are the elevations for the building. So this view here is looking at it from the corner of Chancery, or this is, the Chancery entrance here, and this is Glenwood. And this is looking at it from the corner of Chancery and Walker. So this is the Walker Street elevation, and you can see the doorway coming in here. This elevation is essentially adjacent to the other building, so there's really not a lot of window or detail there because it's going to be just facing a building with almost like an alleyway between the two. So, and this is an aerial view, just showing how the building would fit within that property. This again is Walker Street, this is Chancery, and this is the proximity of the other buildings that are there at this time. So that is my hopefully quick presentation. And this is a local initiative project, as I mentioned. We know that rental housing is a significant need. We have redevelopment of an existing degraded site. The location, I think, is not only suitable, but really perfect. It's downtown. We think the density is appropriate for the downtown location, and it is infill development within a high-density mixed-use area, which is considered to be something that is attractive for housing development. And we have the support of the Affordable Housing Committee, and that is in your file as well. So that is my presentation. Be happy to answer any questions, and we're asking for your vote tonight to endorse the application.
Questions from the board?
Any question?
Is there an elevator in the property?
There is an
There
elevator,
is,
yes,
right?
Mr.
Okay.
Muscali, yeah.
I think it's an exciting project.
I think it's exactly what
I
we.
think it's perfect. The location's perfect. I like the way it looks.
And
Yes.
it's my understanding that because it's so dense and efficient, that you don't need to ask for a subsidy from the Affordable Housing Fund. Am I right about that?
Well, we intend to apply when the time comes. I mean, obviously, that's a long way off. Again, that's
This
within
is
the-
not a funding. I think we
Yeah.
should.
I'm just curious.
Okay, but
Because I saw something in the packet that I was,
Right, I just don't think we should get into the funding side of it at this point, because I think all you're looking for is a letter to support the LIP application.
Correct.
And I think we should keep the funding separate, because I think it can get really confusing and messy. Go ahead.
well, I'm just saying that I saw in the packet there was a rather large subsidy note, which I raised concern with Mr. Renshaw, and
I did see
I
that
didn't-
email, but again, I think that colors what we're being asked to do tonight. I think am I correct about this? This is not about
So,
funding, not
Madam
about
Chair,
applications.
and Select Board Member Brown, so I was emailed over the weekend, and I appreciate the question. Kim and I did converse, consulted, and at that time, I sent a response back, and Madam Chair, you were copied on that response, that it was my understanding that the parties had discussed and had agreed not to have that as part of the application, listed that amount. I think it was the math came about 175,000. So, Madam Chair, I believe you're absolutely correct, and Ms. Moynihan, I appreciate you for saying it. This is at requesting Select Board endorsement of the LIP application and authorizing me to sign. If, going forward through the process, the developer, the applicant wishes to request funding, that would go through, that's a completely separate process, which you all know. That would go through the Falmouth Affordable Housing Fund Working Group. That request would be vetted, and then a recommendation will be brought back to Select Board at that time. But
Okay.
completely separate
And you would
process.
absolutely have that
The only reason I raised it is
conversation.
just because I saw it in the packet that
Yep.
we were discussing today, and I
Yep.
didn't want to infer that that was something that we were approving.
No.
It is not, that
We
is
are
not.
only voting to support the
The
LIP
letter.
application, that's it.
And that draft, and Madam Chair, if I may, that draft letter of endorsement is included in the packet, and wanted to make the board aware of that.
Okay.
Madam Chair, you looking for a motion?
Unless there's any more discussion,
No, I'm
but
fine
yes.
with it all.
I
Just
think
wanted
it's
to
an exciting
make a comment
project.
of that.
Madam Chair, I move that the board endorses the LIP application of 17 Walker Street LLC to construct an 11-unit rental housing project located at 17 Walker Street by sending a letter outlining their approval to the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities and direct the town manager to sign the LIP application.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion amongst the board? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the support. Thank you.
Okay, we are going to move on to vote to approve the Morse Pond School Roof Project, Massachusetts Building Authority Statement of Interest. Mr. Renshaw.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Stephanie Madsen, our Sustainability Coordinator, and Mr. Paul Dart from the school is here to give the presentation. I want to thank both of them for working this project up. As you all know, or probably know, the current roof on Morse Pond School is over 25 years old. Has some significant repair needs. Ultimately, and I don't want to misspeak and steal their thunder, but ultimately, not only does the roof improvements need to be made to make it more energy efficient, but also to allow us perhaps the potential to put solar on the roof once it is repaired and structurally sound. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Dart. Paul?
Thanks, Mike. First of all, let me just thank Stephanie for all the work that she's been doing with the school district in evaluating the structures within the school district for solar energy. So we've gone through a number of different projects. I know she's going to be discussing that later on. But tonight, it's really a simple authorization to allow the superintendent to continue with the application process for the Massachusetts School Building Authority in order to receive a grant funding for the replacement roof at Morse Pond, Morris Pond has a 103,000 square foot roof. Much of that is from the original structure in 1963. So it's, over 63 years in age. The newer section of the building was built in 1998, so that's about 28 years. MSBA has a cutoff of funding projects that are older than 25 years or greater. And so both of those sections of the roof would be qualified under the MSBA program for funding. So what this resolution does is simply allow the application process to proceed. The MSBA evaluates the applications over the course of the spring, summer, do site visits, and if accepted, they would be sending out invitations in the fall. And then at that point, we would then come back to the town with the funding proposal for the architectural and design component, and then for a larger project for the construction in April of next year. Just one note on the application process is there's a window that closes on March 1st for the 2024 year application. There's another window that opens up in 25, the same period, but then it shuts down for 2 years. So that's why we're kind of quickly proceeding with this application now. It's non-binding on us, so we can decide if we didn't want to move forward with the project to remove the application with no harm. So with that, the resolution is, I believe, in your packet. And if there's any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Questions from the board?
Nope.
I don't see any reason not to do it.
No, and I'd be happy to move this one. Motion to authorize the school superintendent to submit to the Massachusetts School Building Authority the statement of interest form dated February 26, 2024 for the Morse Pond School located at 323 Jones Road, Falmouth, Mass. 02536, which describes and explains the following deficiencies and the priority category for which an application must be submitted to the Massachusetts School Building Authority in the future. Morse Pond qualifies for priority number 5, replacement, renovation, modernization of a school facility, systems such as roofs, windows, boilers, heating, ventilation systems to increase energy conservation and decrease energy-related costs in a school facility. Specifically, the Morse Pond School located in an environmental justice community, EJC, needs extensive roof repair as the ages of the roof sections range from 28 to 63 years old. Repair to the roof will increase the energy efficiency and allow for post-solar installation, which will decrease energy-related costs.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion amongst the board? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
Number 5, Sustainability Coordinator Presentation and Updates. Welcome, Stephanie Madsen.
Hello, welcome. Thank you guys so much. Let me just, good evening, select members and town leadership. I'm Stephanie Madsen, the Sustainability Coordinator for the town of Falmouth. I started in late September, and I report to Peter Johnson-Staub. Easing the transition in this is my previous experience as WHOI's Sustainability Coordinator, Sustainability Manager. That's Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution, where I installed 5 solar installations, 10 EV charging stations, LED lights in over 49 buildings, and myriad energy efficiency projects. Collectively, this brought in over $1.5 million in utility incentives and over $600,000 in budget relieving annual energy savings. None of these efforts were done in a vacuum. I worked with the team at WHOI to bring these projects to fruition. In my present role, collaboration with town employees, DPW, school district, and the Energy Committee is paramount to productive and positive outcomes. Already, we are realizing financial and environmental benefits. To demystify sustainability, I'd like you to take a look at this Venn diagram. Often people aren't sure what sustainability actually is. You'll see it's the intersectionality of environment, economy, and society. Sustainability is at the nexus of these 3 elements. I'd like to spend the next 10 minutes highlighting my priorities, project status updates, and future goals. Keeping the sustainability Venn diagram in mind, in the theme Save the Town Money While Decreasing Greenhouse Gas Emissions at the forefront, my focus includes the following priorities. The Green Communities programs, to which we elected to participate in 2021. It includes energy efficiency projects and equipment electrification. Analyze solar installation potentials, including the solar we already own and operate. And then 3, working to expand EV charging stations for the public and municipal use. I'll dive deeper into these 3 areas of focus in the following slides. First, Green Communities. The Green Community Program aims to align communities with the state's goal to be carbon neutral by 2050. These programs prioritize energy efficiency and equipment electrification, while the grid transitions from fossil fuels to renewable energy sources. My responsibilities include annual reporting for energy usage and fleet vehicles, utility analytics, electric and gas, municipal and school buildings energy efficiency measures, competitive grant project design, and stretch code compliance. The analytical utility data coupled with energy audits a few years back allows us to strategically target projects for the Green Communities grants. Love showing this slide because when we started participating in the Green Community, we were offered a designation grant, and it was worth $188,000. But you can see from this chart that the projects that we implemented, mostly LED lights in schools, fire stations, and libraries, the total project cost was over $500,000. That's on the left column. The right column, utility incentives, you can see that National Grid and Cape Light Compact and Eversource offered over $385,000. The net cost to the town, $164,000, but that was covered by the Green Communities grants. So net cost, 0 to the town. We have $23,000 left. We have the police department project in the works. The HVAC broke, so we're putting in energy efficient air source heat pumps. And we're working to get pre-approval for the North Falmouth Library to put in heat pumps to replace the gas furnace. These are the detailed specifics of what the project, the designation grant, has covered thus far. You can see there's a lot of LED lighting. We basically call it the lowest hanging fruit. It yields the most kilowatt hour savings per year and brings the most financial savings, annual relieving savings. We've already calculated the annual budget relieving savings for this Green Communities designation grant is over $68,000. Now, the DPW did a great job implementing this with Peter, and they've transitioned the project management over to me. Now on to solar. This is a hot topic. We've really been diving deep into this. In addition to maintaining the town's existing solar installations, we have a few, I've gone through an extensive feasibility analysis of potential projects at both the municipal and school sites. A few obstacles have minimized the number of feasible projects. Basically, we're using the funnel metaphor. We start off with every single potential building, site, ground, carport that you can imagine. In the funnel, after looking through different criteria, not as many come out the bottom. Just wanted to show you the steps that we took to run this feasibility analysis. Things that we looked at. We prioritized municipal and school sites based on scored criteria. For example, location, roof condition, energy usage. We explored potential solar vendors and tried to determine town ownership versus a long-term lease or a power purchase agreement, PPA it's sometimes called. Review Eversource and Department of Public Utility restrictions and our local bylaws. And then review with the school board and select board, as well as site plan review to determine projects that can move forward. Through this process, we discovered several obstacles hindering our progress with solar, such as age and the strength of building rooftop. Solar installations last 25 to 30 years, so it's preferable to have a rooftop that's relatively new. So many of our buildings have middle-aged or, ancient rooftops, like the 61-year-old roof on Morse Pond. So that can hinder installation sites. The second one is a huge one. The Department of Public Utility right now has a hold on any commercial solar project over 25 kW. Even though we have state goals to be carbon neutral by 2050, the DPW put a hold or a cap. It has many synonyms. It's called a SIP, SIP or a hold, and a group study it's also called. The infrastructure in Massachusetts, and especially in Cape Cod, is failing. It hasn't evolved over time to handle this huge electric load that they're encouraging. That's because of EV charging stations, heat pumps, and solar installations. So the outdated infrastructure needs to be updated. No one wants to pay for it. And so they put a hold on it. And so right now, we cannot install anything over 25 kW if it's going to be net metered and exported to the grid. So we've been very creative about finding high usage locations, making it behind the meter. And then the third one is solar overlay bylaw limitations. So I just discovered this one recently. The water treatment plant and the wastewater treatment facility are perfect for ground mount solar, yet we have solar overlay district in Falmouth that encourages solar installations, large scale, but it prohibits outside of that district anything over 250 kW. So that's limiting. It's not a hard obstacle. We can get around it, but we'll have to be creative. But despite these delays, I'm happy to update that we have two projects that came out of the funnel. One is the senior center rooftop, and the other one is the water treatment plant rooftop. That'll be 100% behind the meter, meaning all the energy, all the electrons go into the building. They do not get net metered or exported out to the grid. We have to wait for this DPU hold to be lifted to move forward on a lot of other projects. I do remain hopeful, despite these delays. I think over the next 10, 20 years, we'll have a lot of solar installations in Falmouth. All right, the third priority, EV charging stations. So in addition to installing EV charging units for the town's fleet, we have a lot of plug-in hybrids. A DC fast charger is going to be installed over at Peg Noonan Park across the street in the parking lot at 20 Academy Lane. The DC fast charger, it's 480 volt. It's one unit. It will have 2 ports. It was started 2 years ago by DPW. They've done a great job, but like the green communities, they're handing these projects on to me, and I'm really excited to take them on. Funding to support this was over $170,000, came from the Eversource EV Make Ready program. I implemented and used this funding source twice at Hui, and they pay for everything except the hardware, but the Mass EVIP grant was available for the hardware for this situation that we're going to have across the street. Now, level 3 or these DC fast chargers are fantastic for all electric vehicles, but many of us drive plug-in hybrids. That's where level 2 or tier 2 charging stations are ideal. We don't really have many in Falmouth that are for the public. We do have one at Flying Bridge. We're proposing to add more of these throughout town. We're just waiting on a few things. Our goal is to have a third-party vendor service agreement in place to manage, maintain, and operate the chargers to relieve the town employees from the burden of managing town-owned EV chargers. So we're in the works of developing a license agreement with a third-party vendor. These are the tier 2, 240-volt charging stations. The status of the fast charger right now, the easement from Eversource we just received. That has to be approved by town meeting. And then as soon as that happens, we can move forward with installation. They're going to put a transformer and a pole across the street. Eversource is just waiting for the April 8th meeting. Now, looking forward, next steps. I plan to apply for the Green Communities competitive grants annually. Once the designation grant is finished, I can apply for these competitive grants, valued at over $200,000. explore additional solar installations when the DPU restrictions are lifted, identify EV charging station locations for both public and municipal use, apply for the EV Make Ready program grants, work with municipal and school buildings to identify energy efficiency projects, savings, and funding agencies, and continue to collaborate with town staff, schools, the Energy Committee, and memberships and funding agencies. In conclusion, you can find more information on my website. The QR code will take you to my website. And at this point, I'm happy to field any questions.
Questions from the board?
Great update.
How busy.
Go ahead.
How fast
Brown?
are those fast car chargers? Like 20 minutes or so?
45 minutes will get you 300 miles range. And the fast,
Is that as fast as they come, or just curious if,
yeah.
okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
I have a question. Your slide about solar challenges says solar overlay bylaw limitations of 250 kilowatts. And you mentioned that the wastewater treatment plant is not within that. Do you think that that's a bylaw that we may be interested in changing? Or you said you might have some creative ways to work around that? I'm curious.
Changing it is the most creative.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Any other, Mr. Renshaw?
Just a comment. Clearly, you can tell Stephanie's passion for renewable energy. She's to say that she's hit the ground running would be probably the biggest understatement I've ever made. What, in 5 months? Less
5
than
months.
that? She's truly a collaborator. She works great with DPW, all the departments really. She's reached out, shown that initiative, the drive, and again, her excitement and passion for what she does is apparent. So thank you, Stephanie,
Thank
for what
you.
you do.
Appreciate that.
Really patient about answering a lot of questions.
Well done. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, we will move on to historic district markers. Mr. Haddad, Chairman of the Historical Commission.
Good evening, everybody.
And we've slated you for 10 minutes.
This is true. I am Ed Haddad, the Chairman of the Historical Commission. And I'm here tonight to explain to you or update you on a project that we've been working on, we're very excited about, and it's moving along, and we're at a point now where we think it's very feasible, and that's what we wanted to bring you in on it now at this point, because we have something to talk about. So as you'll recall, even though I've told you this many times, I'll do it again, we have 7 historic districts in Falmouth. One of the things that the project that we're going to talk about tonight is historic district signage. We really, although there are some signs up there, you would be hard pressed to see them. I bet you've never seen them. And they're probably about the size of your name plaques in front of you. So not surprised that you aren't aware of them. We have so many terrific assets, especially our historic districts in Falmouth, that we think it's time to show them off, present a little pride to the people who live in those districts, and for our visitors and tourists that come to town, tell them how proud we are of our historic assets. That's what our intention is. So a couple of years ago when we started this project, the first steps was the Historical Commission looked at a lot of different types of signs in different towns. I'm sure you've seen them all. If you drive around anywhere in Massachusetts and New England, you'll see the signs there entering the Sandwich Historic District, entering Chatham Historic District. I mean, they're all over the place. So we looked at a bunch of signs and we picked out a design that the commission was very happy with. We went to a sign maker and we told him about our project, and we asked him, what would he recommend, and he gave us his thoughts about the design of the sign, the materials of the sign, to ensure they were durable, that they were visible, and the types of stuff that he would do with it. So from that, we got a prototype sign design, which I'll show you in a minute. Well, last year, we were actually sitting with the planning department, with Jed and Melinda. We talked about how do we make this happen? What can we do to fund this? That's the big issue, is obviously funding. How do we fund this? So we talked about different creative ways that we might use. We then brought it to Peter McConaty at DPW, because we wanted his input into this, because we wanted him to help us with both the funding of it and the installation. So we did meet with Peter. We had a great talk. We talked about locations. We talked about the signs. He liked the idea. He agreed with us. And actually, the first run that we had of signage, I thought we might need 17 signs. And Peter, based on where he thought they could go strategically, we've cut it down to 11 signs throughout the 7 districts. And I'll go through that with you after I show you the sign. So Peter was on board. He talked about he's very willing to install them. He talked about because he has the capabilities through his normal sign thing. Even though the sign will be made, you still need the posts, and we need to find a place to put them. And that's where Peter came along to help us. About a month ago, we met with Mr. Renshaw, and we told him about our project because now the funding had to come in here. We talked about some creative things we might be able to do through the town. It's not going to be a lot of money. The project should come in at less than $25,000. So we're not talking a lot of money. So we did meet with him, got his thoughts about what he thought we could do and not do. And again, a favorable response from him as well. And now it's your turn. So the first from the sign maker, we told him where we wanted to go with the sign and the locations. And this was the size that he had proposed. He said our most important district is obviously our downtown area. It's one of our largest historic districts. And he had proposed this size sign for us. This would be obviously the town seal, Falmouth Village Historic District, and I don't know if you realize it's a National Register Historic District, and that would be the sign. Don't look at the color yet. We haven't finalized that necessarily yet, but this is about the prototype. This is what we liked. After looking at the size, not quite sure that we want a billboard downtown. We have a second version, which we think may be what we end up going with in all the districts. I don't know if you realize, of our 7 historic districts, only 4 are National Register districts, so we would include that in 4 of them. 3 would not have it on there, because we can't make that up. So what we're thinking, what we're thinking about with placement, we thought 3 in the downtown area because there's 3 major feeder roads coming into the village. We thought of 2 in North Falmouth and 2 in West Falmouth because those are actually 2 of our largest districts as far as length because they go a very long way. 1 in Woods Hole, 1 in Davisville, 1 in Wacoit, and 1 in Quissit. So there's the 11 locations that we don't know exactly the locations, but those are how we think that the signs would go through the 7 historic districts. So this is probably realistically what our signs would look like, very close to this, if not this exactly. So that's it. Like I said, right now what we're finalizing is a strategy for funding, how we would do that through the town, what kind of mechanism we could use through operating funds or go to town meeting with it. Like I said, it's not a lot of money. It's going to be less than $25,000. That's what the project came to. And once we finalize that, and then we'll put it on some kind of a timeline. This has been on our agenda for at least a couple of years because we talk about it all the time. So certainly the public has had the opportunity to weigh in on it. We have gotten some inquiries. Not a lot, but I think it's something that's time has come.
Any questions from the board?
I like it.
Mr. Brown?
Would it be advisable to put a little QR code on the signpost so people would know where the districts are? When I first saw that this was coming, I thought you were going to suggest a sign at each end so people would know they were in the district, but I can see it makes sense to keep the signs to a minimum. And I guess you're going to probably put it in the middle of the district in North Falmouth?
No, in North Falmouth, they would be at the 2 ends because it's so long.
Okay.
West Falmouth at each end, again, because it's so long. Woods Hole, because it's kind of an odd shaped thing. We probably have one going down Woods Hole Road when you actually go into the district. Okay. And the same with Quissit, the same with Wacoit, the same with Davisville. And then in the downtown, we probably would propose Palmer Avenue, Locust Street, and then East Main Street. Your three major feeder roads coming into the downtown. That's how we visualize it. That's how we came up with the 11
Thank you.
locations.
Any other questions or comments?
I think it's a good-looking sign.
I do too, and I like the idea of identifying them as you're entering the village.
Yeah, again, I think our time has come.
Mr. Renshaw?
Just a quick comment. I think it's a great concept too. I mean, the thing that attracted me to the community originally was just the significant historical sites in the community, and the fact that we do not have any of these marker designations kind of surprised me, to be honest. So when I had a chance to meet and learn more about the project, I'm excited about it. It's going to be my recommendation that we look at this as a capital funding project for November town meeting. We're still kind of looking at the numbers, but I think it's going to be, like Mr. Haddad said, under 25,000. But I think it fits in the November capital plan request.
Good idea. Thank you. Thank you very much for the update. Okay, we're going to go to business number 7. Vote to approve a letter to Mass DOT requesting lines and signs improvements along Route 28A, West Falmouth Highway. Mr. Renshaw?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Real quickly, as you may recall, we had a road safety audit along Route 28A that was performed by Mass DOT last year, April of 2023. The audit included participants from West Falmouth Village Association, the Town of Falmouth staff, Mass DOT staff, and their consultants. The audit actually identified some areas of concern and potential improvements that we could put in place. We received Mr. Jim Gray, the president, I believe, of the West Falmouth Village Association, reached out to my office requesting that the select board consider sending a letter to Mass DOT under this, I don't know if it's a new program, but this DOT program called Lines and Signs. Basically, the intent, as I understand it, and Peter McCarthy is here to kind of address any questions you may have as well, really to address the kind of low-hanging fruit, so to speak, the types of projects that can be done relatively inexpensively and relatively quickly that still have a pretty high impact on safety within the community. You have included in your packet a draft letter that kind of outlines those areas, those improvements, the lines and signs, so to speak, that we're recommending. And again, if you have any questions between myself and Peter McConerty, we hopefully can answer those. But it would be my recommendation, Madam Chair, that the board approve sending this letter to the district and requesting this Lines and Signs program be implemented here in Falmouth.
Any questions from the board?
I'm on the West Falmouth Village Association's newsletter, so I've seen that they've been working on this for quite a long time and done a lot of their own footwork, and Peter, of course, has done a lot with it, so I'm pretty familiar with it myself. I don't have any questions.
I'm in full support of it as well.
I had one other comment, if I may. Mr. Gray is not able to be with us tonight. I have been emailing him. I did ask Peter and his staff to kind of review the list that was originally submitted, and it was a lengthy list. There were more items on that list that Mr. Gray sent, just to be transparent. I asked Peter to kind of take a look at it and again present to the board tonight a kind of a realistic, those items in the Lines and Size program that could be knocked out quickly. We want to be realistic with the request to District 5. So Peter, do you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, Peter McConerty, Director of Public Works. I think you summed it up very nicely. Basically, what the Mass DOT, they have a 5-year plan that they look towards. When you do an RSA, that a lot of the major items are geometric design, looking at curb cuts and horizontal, vertical. But these areas that we were looking at was line signs, tree canopy cutting back, intersections, speed limit signs. Review that. Another big area was the signage. Not many people know, but street signs have actually years age to it, but when they should be replaced, there's a retro reflectivity on them that the geogrid picks up with the headlights, and they should be. There's actually the new signs that they put out have a date on them, and they last like 10, 12 years, and they should be replaced. So to look at all that signage so it gets picked up at nighttime. Some of the lighting on 28A is the Admiral Hat lighting, and some of it's dim at times. So I think that would be a big, contributory factor. But yeah, it's basically the areas that they can do in a short-term improvements that they can make. Yeah.
Questions, comments?
I guess I would just say, are there any significant things that you've scaled back that you think that the West Falmouth Village would be disappointed with?
No, I don't know. So what we basically looked at is we were at the RSA meeting and when the road safety audit, when they went out and looked at the site. A lot of the areas they categorized by intersection per intersection, and for public works, we generalized some of the areas from Brick Hill, not from Sipawissett, all the way up to Thomas B. Landers, cutting back trees instead of doing it at intersections, do the whole area. Signage, looking at the whole area. So we generalized a lot of the statements to include the whole segment.
So you simplified the language, but probably increased the project rather than scaled it back.
Yeah, there's some areas in West Falmouth that, especially near the old Dock Road area, that's going to take some geometric and some thought to put into it. So right now, if we can do the signage and we can do sight lines, that'd be good for a short-term investment.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I motion to approve submitting a letter to Mass DOT requesting the listed, quote, lines and signs improvement along Route 28A West Falmouth Highway.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion amongst the board? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Thank you, Peter.
Madam Chair, if I may. Peter, while you're here, I wanted to say thank you for all the work the DPW did after the last snow. I mentioned it at recognition, but since you're here, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we will move into business number 8, vote article recommendations for the April 2024 annual town meeting. Mr. Renshaw.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There are 7 articles for which the Select Board will submit the formal recommendation to town meeting. These recommendations are going to be printed in the town meeting warrant book and distributed to all the town meeting members. March 4th is the date that we anticipate sending this off to the printer, so time is of the essence. The Finance Committee, as you all know, submits recommendations for financial articles. The Planning Board submits recommendations for zoning-related articles. And the Community Preservation Committee submits recommendations for funding from the Community Preservation Fund. Madam Chair and Select Board members, included in your packet tonight are draft recommendations and explanations prepared by staff for all 7 of the articles, subject to Select Board discussion and approval. These recommendations and the explanations can be amended based on input that we received tonight from the Select Board. Importantly, the recommendations must be voted by the Select Board in order to be printed and submitted to town meeting. The wording of the explanations may be refined and updated by staff without a specific Select Board vote after this meeting. So it's the recommendations that you'll be voting this evening. As I mentioned, the town meeting warrant book is scheduled to be sent to the printer March 4th, which makes the Select Board's, makes tonight's meeting the last meeting the Select Board has a chance to review. Madam Chair and Select Board, I'm going to ask Peter Johnson-Staub, the Assistant Town Manager, because he and Susan Lumping did the majority of the work with regards to Article 4, the pay classification, to give a kind of a presentation and review of that. It is going to be my recommendation, Madam Chair, that the Select Board consider approval of Article numbers 4, 23, 24, 25, 26, and 27 as submitted tonight. On Friday, Town Council and I had an opportunity to meet and discuss Article 23, which, as you know, is the article concerning the real estate transfer fee.
33, right?
33. Yep. During that conversation, Town Council and I saw an opportunity to revise the language in the printed version of Article 33. I have a revised red line version in front of you tonight. I also had an opportunity to have a discussion with Select Board Member Muscali. First off, I want to say I appreciate the discussion on February 12th. It was informative, but quite honestly, I feel like I missed maybe some of the intent. So the input that I had earlier today from Select Board Member Muscali, the chance I had to meet with Town Council to get it right, because I think obviously it's important that we get it right and capture the intent, is why we're here tonight. So again, Article 33, with regards to the real estate transfer fee, I wanted to bring to the board's attention tonight that you have two versions, which I think, quite honestly, accomplish the same purpose, based upon the graduated sliding scale discussion that we had back on February 12th. They just say it in slightly different ways. Before I go too far down that path of Article 33, like I said, because there's been a lot of work and I think a tremendous amount of work and effort gone into Article 4, I want to give Peter kind of an opportunity to review Article 4, the pay classification. So, Peter?
Thank you, Mr. Renshaw. So Article 4, again, is to amend the town position classification plan. At your last meeting, we reviewed with you a number of changes for the non-union technical, administrative, and management positions. These are all itemized, all of the changes to the plan are itemized in the draft recommendation in your packet tonight. I believe if your numbering is the same as mine, that's on page 38 of your electronic packets. So as we discussed at the last meeting, the process, and I started to say at your last meeting, we reviewed the technical, administrative, and management positions. Also included in this recommended article tonight are library positions, which the board addressed in executive session this evening and did vote to approve a memorandum of agreement with the library union, which includes these classification changes for these library positions. So in total, there are 36 positions that we are seeking to change the pay grade classification for, and that was done through a process that started with an independent consultant that reviewed each of these positions. They reviewed a job assessment questionnaire with each of the affected employees. The consultant, based on those interviews and based on some comments from supervisors using a scoring tool that the consultant brought for the purposes of this analysis, placed all of these positions into pay grades and then reviewed that with staff. And the purpose of the classification review broadly is to place positions, is to address internal equity. So to make sure that, when we have, various different positions with different requirements for education and training and different working conditions and responsibilities, that there is a logical hierarchy between those that are graded higher than others or lower than others. So that's internal equity. The classification process also looks at organizational structure and market realities. So all of that was prepared by the consultant with staff input, and then the town manager, the human resources director, and myself reviewed that in great detail and refined some of those recommendations to get to what the classification proposals in front of you. I won't go through the individual positions other than to say I will just spend a minute. The table for the technical, administrative, and management positions, you'll see it shows the current grade, the existing grade with new numbering, and the proposed grade. That might be a little bit confusing. In the current system, there's a grade 3A and a grade 10A. And in the new numbering system, we eliminated 3A and we just changed the label of 10A to 11. So the result is we have the current grades go from 3 to 13, where before they went from 2 to 11. And the reason that we put all of these grades here is because we wanted you to be able to see, in some cases, the current grade and the proposed grade may be one or two different, but in terms of where we slotted them in the salary, I'll use a specific example. So for grade 11, the grade 11 new numbering is grade 12, meaning no change in the salary range. If it's going from current grade 11 to existing grade 12 with new numbering, then there's no change. So the only time that you're seeing a change in pay grade is if there's a difference between existing grade with new numbering and proposed grade. It's probably easier to see in print than it is to hear me describe it. So with that, I will just say that we have 23 positions in the technical, administrative, and management non-union. We have 12 positions with the grade change in the library union. There is one grade change within the AFSCME A union. That's for the electrician position, which we touched on at the last meeting. And then finally, there are 2 new positions being proposed. And I believe we touched on those at the last meeting as well. Those new positions are the Deputy Finance Director and the Solid Waste Coordinator. So with that, I would take any questions that the board might have.
Any questions?
Just have one question about the solid waste coordinator. Significance to the designation of, it's going to be 37.5 hours rather than 40?
That's the standard for technical administrative management positions.
Oh, it is?
In that pay grade range, yes.
Oh, okay.
Same question.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
So, thank you, Peter, for that. And again, I want to thank Peter and Susan, primarily the consultants, obviously, because just a tremendous amount of work and effort went into that pay classification planning process, months of work. So thank you, Peter. Want to, if there are any questions with regards to the other articles that are being considered tonight, with the exception of Article 33 that I want to spend some time on, does any board member have any questions with regards to Article 23, 24, 25, 26, or 27? Because my recommendation is that the board approve those as submitted tonight. The recommendation. Vote to approve the recommendation.
Had all my questions answered in advance.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. So with that being said, so what I want to do now is make a recommendation with regards to Article 33. And Town Council and I did have an opportunity to consult before tonight's meeting. Town Council, I don't want to put words in her mouth, but I think Town Council is confident that both versions that you have in front of you, the red line version prepared by Town Council and I on Friday, and the version presented and discussed with me and Select Board Member Muscali this morning, both accomplished the same thing. What I'd suggest and recommend, and I'll open this up obviously for discussion and take direction from the board, is if you look at the red line version that was prepared by Town Council and myself on Friday, I feel like we can insert I think the more streamlined language with regards to how the graduated sliding scale is going to be applied right into, and I'll read it so that I'm being clear with what I'm recommending. The first sentence in the recommendation, that the town vote to authorize the select board to petition the general court for a special act to impose a real estate transfer fee as follows. A real estate transfer fee applies to all sales of residential real estate where the sales price is $1 million or more. The graduated fee structure is a percentage of a portion of sales price, semicolon. I'd recommend and propose that we insert the language that Select Board Member Muscali presented after that semicolon. For conveyances where the sales price is $1 million but less than $1,500,000, a fee of 1% of the excess over $1 million is assessed. And for conveyances where the sales price is $1.5 million but less than $2 million, a fee of 1% of the excess over $1 million, and in addition, a fee of 1.5% of the excess over $1,500,000 is assessed. And for conveyances where the sales price is $2 million or more, a fee of 1% of the excess over $1 million, and a fee of 1.5% of the excess over $1.5 million up to and including $2 million, and a fee of 2% of the excess over $2 million is assessed. I'd recommend that we insert that language right after that first semicolon.
Go ahead.
I like that idea. Could we also, in the explanation, put an example or a couple examples just for people who don't like math? So
I think we can.
Yeah. So like 1.2 million and then like a 3.2.
And I did that exercise and left my notes because Board Member Muscali suggested that I do just that. So I had some of those examples. I just forgot my notes.
Okay, great.
So
I think that would be.
I did do the math. I hope I got it right, but we'll verify that.
Go ahead, Mr. Brown.
I gotta say, I was surprised to see the way that the math was being done, and you guys both did the same thing, so I guess I must have missed it at the meeting. But I thought what we agreed to was a little more simple, whereas a $1 million home would be the 1%, a 1.5 would be the 1.5%. And I didn't anticipate that we were gonna do 1% over $1 million up to the 1.5, and then do the 1.5. I didn't realize we were gonna do this multiple
Cumulative.
math on each one. I thought that if you hit that trigger point of 1.5, you were gonna pay the 1.5 on the whole thing. And if you hit the trigger point of 2, you're gonna pay the 2% on the whole thing over $1 million. But I see that you're graduating not only the trigger, but also the way you're calculating it. And I wonder if that is more complicated than it needs to be for people to understand it. And also, it decreases revenue significantly because you're shorting yourself on every time you recalculate with the lower figure. So to me, I mean, once you've triggered that threshold, I think you trigger the whole amount over $1 million. That's my take. And I was just surprised to see this math. I didn't understand we were actually thinking that far.
If I may, I think where I saw this was what I anticipated, what ultimately we were just discussing when we talked about it on the 12th. I think when I started looking at the numbers, for instance, if you have a house that sold for $1,490,000, okay, so $490,000 is the excess over $1 million. That particular person would be paying 1% of $490,000, which is $4,900.
Right.
If you went up the next step just a little bit, $1,520,000, okay, $1,520,000. Now that's a $30,000 difference in price, but on your scenario, or what we had said, the transfer fee just for that little difference of $30,000 jumps up to $7,625. Just because you've gone from, below, it seemed to me to be a much bigger jump. It's like a difference of what's 49 to 76. It's like, another 50% or thereabouts. So that's where, when I started looking at it in the language that Mike and Laura had come up with, I started thinking that, it should be graduated, and that's where I was coming from.
Okay.
I think it's fairer to the people
That are on the edge.
that are on the edge, and it also prevents people from manipulating. Okay, well, I'm going to sell for $1,499,000, and
Pay me cash for the rest.
Exactly. So that's that was where I think it was coming from.
Right. Okay.
Yes, Mr. Renshaw.
So Peter made a great suggestion, and Ed, I hate to put you on the spot, but I'm gonna do it. Could you speak, Ed, based upon your experience, the mechanics of what we're talking about, Madam Chair, if you don't mind?
Go right ahead.
In the implementation. I don't want to confuse the issue, but do you mind saying a couple of words with, Ed, our finance director, with regards to the implementation?
Ed Seggio, finance director. I guess I'm not quite aware of how this is going to be implemented. Will this be done by the Registry of Deeds as part of this process, or will it be done by town staff?
No, the theory is that these would be assessed at the time of sale at the Registry of Deeds by the Registry of Deeds.
Right,
But that hasn't been worked out yet.
as part of the sales process, which I think if we're talking about complexity and putting a burden on town staff, if it were done through the Registry of Deeds, I'm not as concerned, actually, as I would be if town staff had to go through and try to collect that money. So I think, and from their perspective, obviously, if each town does it differently, they're going to have, kind of a hurdle to deal with as it relates to trying to collect different fees for each one of the communities that they address this with. So I don't know if they're going to, perhaps push back and say, can you guys, come up with a consolidated method of how to handle this so perhaps we can automate it.
But that's what we're hoping that the governor's ruling would just
Yes.
mean across the board, right?
Yeah. Ed probably missed that conversation we had done back on the 12th, but yes, it's my understanding that the action the board takes tonight, this petition, goes to the state, goes to the governor's office, the legislature chews on that, and then comes up with its own version. And then the Falmouth and the other communities would have the option to accept that state language. Do I have that correct?
You know, I think it's that very reason why the state legislature hasn't seen fit to grant any of these home rule petitions, because of the differences between town and town and town. So hopefully we'll get something
Right.
from the governor that,
Right.
that says what it is, and then the town can choose to be part of it or not.
And our letter was to help initiate that insistence, to get it, something done, so then it could be defined, correct?
Absolutely.
So that she hasn't, so that the governor has enough communities that are saying this is important.
Thanks, Ed, for your comments.
Thank you. And,
Given
you know,
that
somebody like
explanation-
Nantucket County, who is all self-contained, they can kind of do it their way, but, you know, something like a Barnstable County would be more problematic.
I would
Thank
move that
you.
we use Mr. Muscali's language to do the math on Article 33.
Madam Chair, may I ask a
Yes.
clarifying question? I just want to make sure that when we insert this language as proposed and as outlined by the town manager, that we retain the last two lines, 2.5 lines, starting with the fees payable by the seller. Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you. That's what I meant, but yeah, thank you. Yeah.
So we're not deleting town council's language, we're adding in, am I correct?
So, yeah, my explanation was a little confusing. Thank you for catching. We're going to leave the last two sentences as town council proposed. What I'm suggesting we do tonight is that select board vote to take the three sentences as proposed and discussed with myself and select board member Muscali this morning, insert those after the first, let me just make sure I have this right, after the first semicolon. No, I'm sorry. No, it's not the first. It's not the first. It's actually the second.
Right.
Basically, where it starts in the town council iteration of this recommended for conveyances where the sales price is between $1 million and I'm proposing that we insert these three sentences within that section, right? To basically strike and replace the red line verbiage developed by town council and me on Friday with Mr. Muscali's language, with, as town council recommended, keeping the last two sentences intact.
I have one last question. Why is it the seller? Why is that important rather than the buyer?
It's a choice. This is a policy decision, and you're making choices.
Mhm. I think it would be better to put it on the buyer.
Didn't we talk?
We did.
Well, we talked
We did.
about splitting it,
Yeah, I
and
was
Mr.
trying to
Muscali
remember
talked me
what
out
the-
of that, because he said it's just gonna make it
But
more
I guess I didn't do a
complicated.
good enough job.
No, you talked me out of it.
Obviously not.
No, you talked me out of splitting it between the buyer and the
Well, I
seller.
think we also discussed the who was gonna pay it, and I thought we kind of landed.
Well, we did leave it
we
on that,
landed
but
on
I'm
the
just,
seller.
I'm just
I
wondering.
mean, it's customary, as you all know, that the transfer tax and fees and all are paid by the seller at the closing. So
Mhm.
I think it's just consistent with that. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a negotiation between the buyer and the seller. When the buyer and the seller come to an agreement on the price, knowing that somebody's paying it, I just think it's cleaner to just,
Okay, I
rather
agree.
than split it, you know, just leave it as the seller.
I guess
Did
I'll
a
go
job,
with
Bob, on that one.
He is a lawyer.
it. He is with it. I heard.
Maybe I convinced him this time.
That's why I voted for him. Okay, I'm good with it.
Okay, does anyone want to make a motion on these articles?
Madam Chair, I motion to approve the April 2024 annual town meeting article recommendations as submitted and amended.
I'll second Mr. Scott Price's motion.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion amongst the board?
Just that I will be abstaining from the article dealing with the EDIC. That's
Do you know what number that is, Mr. Muscali?
all. 23?
Let's go back.
23.
23.
Okay, so,
I'll amend my
yes,
motion
thank you.
excluding Article 23.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion amongst the board? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And now we'll take Article 23 separately.
Madam Chair, I motion to approve Article 23 of the April 2024 annual town meeting recommendation as submitted.
I'll second Mr. Scott Price's motion.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion amongst the board? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
4 with 1 abstention. Thank you. Now, I just want to recognize we have people here on petitioners' articles, and I don't know if anyone wants to speak. I'll give you a few minutes. You know that we don't make the recommendations, correct? Because there's money attached. Anyone? Okay, we'll keep moving. Town manager's supplemental report. Mr. Renshaw?
Apologize, I don't have a written report, but I do have one thing I wanted to put out to the community. Couple of things, actually. The Eel Pond Bridge, got word this afternoon that down in Woods Hole, that has been repaired. There was a mechanical issue with that bridge, and it's been repaired back to full operation. The other update I want to make real quickly is in regards to dredging. We did obtain a time of year, I believe it is, waiver through the state to allow one of the two county dredges to come down and do a couple of our inlets. Unfortunately, both dredges had mechanical issues, one of which is coming our way, is stuck in Harwich right now, I understand. But we're hopeful later this week that they're going to get the repairs made. I think they're already effecting the repairs, and that barge, the sand shifter or the Cape Cod 2, whichever one it is going to make its way to Falmouth. So we're going to be able to take care of those two inlets. So
We can't get timed out because of their breakdown, right?
So that's my understanding, but I'll say this, talking to Greg Frazier today, it's a tight window, and we're confident that one of the two dredges is going to make its way from the other side of the Cape to Falmouth this week. As long as we get it in here and start the dredging operations in February, because that's how the language was stated. It was estimated that we would start the dredging operations in the month of February. We should be fine, and I'm optimistic that'll happen. Not trying to skirt the question. I think we'll be in good shape. I just wanted to let the board know that Greg's been working hard on that for the past several months and did get the time of year extension.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else, Mr. Renshaw?
No, ma'am, that's it.
Okay, we'll move to select board reports.
Quick report on the beach committee. Superintendent reported that hiring is moving along quickly, and we're in better position than we were last year at this time, so that's very encouraging. The zoning board had Saxon Partners meeting again last week. Saxon Partners announced that they're going to be changing their plan of their development to create 50-foot buffers around the perimeters of the project in order to gain more public support. They're going to condense the project on the site, but not change the development line. So they still want to keep it in the wooded area, but they're trying to provide buffers on the edges that hopefully will be better received. And they're going to meet again this coming Thursday, kind of trying to move up their timeline because they're concerned about making sure they get all their work done. So I'll be attending again just to monitor and see how they're doing. That's the highlights.
Thursday the 7th.
Oh, excuse me, it's not Thursday? Oh, thank you for telling me.
Ms. Scott Price? No? Mr. Zelinski?
I had my second CCMPO meeting today. I'm going to be rewatching
Okay.
that
Okay.
to digest some more of this new endeavor of mine.
Oh, that's
to
right, yeah.
understand how that works.
Is that it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion amongst the board? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
See you on Saturday, and please, we have lots of stuff to sign.